Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Now, these guys are another very new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last year or two, and from what I've seen, they've been very prolific in their output. They've tried lots of different styles of beer, and I've had a lot of people telling me this is one of the Japanese breweries that I really need to check out. So here we are. It's always nice to introduce new Japanese breweries to you here on Rampant Lion Reviews. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy. This one is at the heavier and darker end of the spectrum, and it's also a sub-style that you don't come across all that often in any country in the world as far as I've seen. And that was the main reason that this beer in particular caught my eye out of the choices that I had to look at. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head a little bit northeast of me here in Osaka up to Mie Prefecture. We're going to go to the city of Ise, to be specific, which is very famous for the Shinto religion, and it's very pretty, so I do recommend that you go there and visit. But we're going to have a look at my first beer from Himitsu Beer. So this particular beer is called Eclipse. It comes in at 12% ABV, and this one is a Belgian Imperial Stout. So yeah, it's not all that often that you come across Imperial Stouts in Belgium itself, and you don't find too many foreign breweries brewing Belgian Imperial Stouts, and that was the main reason that this particular beer caught my eye. I bought this one on one of my last trips to Japan. I'm filming this review for you in July 2024, but I think I bought this one back in February or April when I was over here because I didn't know the brewery, and I think I got it at Craft Beer Based Mother Tree in Umeda here in Osaka, which I do recommend you visit. So yeah, that was the main reason that this one in particular caught my eye, because you don't come across all that many Belgian Imperial Stouts. And as I say, at the time I didn't know the brewery. I've had many people since then actually telling me this is one of the breweries that I need to check out. So since this is a brewery from Ise, I should give a big shout out to my good friend Jordan, who is from Canada originally, but he has his channel here in Japan talking about Japanese culture mainly, but he is a big beer enthusiast as well. He's featured on the channel before. Outside Insider in Japan, I think is his channel name. I always mess it up, but I'll put the link to his channel in the description below, so do make sure you go and check out his videos, and he shows you a lot of his local area, and he does enjoy a beer as well, so there are a few videos about beer too, which are really interesting. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Himitsu Beer. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist, along with a number of other things that is constantly being added to, of course, because I am here in Japan quite regularly. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. And if you are specifically interested in Japanese beer, do make sure you check out my friend Neva over at Japanese Craft Beer Reviews. He'll keep you up to date a bit more regularly than I will, because I review stuff from all over the place. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Himitsu Beer then. So, Himitsu Beer, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Ise in Mie Prefecture in the Kansai region here in Japan, and the company was founded back in 2022 by Yabuki Keita and Sasaki Motoki. So the two men were high school classmates back in the day from Ujiyama High School, and they also attended the same university in Ishikawa where they studied agriculture and food science. But after graduation, Yabuki worked for a publishing company while Sasaki went on to work in research for a sake manufacturer. But apparently they bumped into each other again or met at a school reunion, and this kind of rekindled their desire to do something together. So apparently they were both really influenced by British craft beer, and this made them think about producing their own beer. So they went on to work for different breweries. Sasaki worked for Isakadoya in Mie, of course, which is a really good brewery. I do recommend you check them out. While Yabuki went on to work for Yoroko Beer in Kanagawa Prefecture, which is one that I still need to check out. But after a number of years working for these breweries, they decided that it was time to start their own brewery, and so they started putting things in place. So the brewery itself can be found in a barn that once belonged to Yabuki's grandparents in the Futami area, and they received finance through crowdfunding for their equipment, and they renovated the barn almost completely by themselves, apart from laying the floor and doing the electrical work. But they liked the idea of being a farmhouse brewery, and so they produced some of the ingredients for the beers themselves on the surrounding land, mainly rye and wheat from what I understand, but they're hoping to increase the variety and the volume of stuff that they produce going forward. But they produced their first beers in 2023, and they've been very prolific in both the number of beers that they've been producing and the different styles, and they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last year or two. But apparently the brewery motto is a brewery that creates a place to belong. I have seen a few different translations of this, but basically the motto embodies the idea of kind of community spirit. I think that's a good way to put it. And the name Himitsu translates into English as secret. So this brewery's name is basically Secret Beer. And the idea behind this is that they want to make beer that's so good you want to keep it a secret, but you also want to tell one of your best friends or something like this. But as of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 110 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And when you consider that they produced their first beers in 2023, I think that is pretty good going, actually. That is pretty damn prolific. And like I say, they've done a variety of different styles, so we'll just need to keep an eye out and see what we can find from Himitsu Beer going forward. But yeah, that is everything that I can really tell you about Himitsu Beer for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, we can breathe now. Let's take a look at the beer itself and see how we go. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. So like I said to you, this one comes in at 12% ABV. It's a Belgian style Imperial Stout, I guess we can say, and the name is Eclipse. So yeah, you can see it, plain silver top on the can there, tells you a little bit about the beer on the back there. So if for those of you who are Japanese speakers, I'll just pause that there. But yeah, there wasn't too much information available on this one, but I did actually translate some of the stuff on Google Translate. So just give me a little minute and I'll bring that up. Alright guys, sorry for the little pause there, but yeah, I just checked the Japanese description there and what it actually said. It was just talking about all the different flavours and things like that. It didn't actually say anything about the ingredients of the beer, but they do recommend pairing this beer with a good steak. So yeah, that was quite interesting. I think Mia is actually quite famous for its beef, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I thought there would have been something in there about the malts and hops and things, but unfortunately not. But yeah, I'll just have a wee look at the can again there. There you can see the Eclipse sort of roundel. It's like an old school roundel from the beer taps you'll find in Europe. Plain silver top, as we said. This one is a 350ml can. I think we've said everything we really need to about the brewery and the beer itself. So yeah, let's see. Let's just see what this beer's got in store for us. I just noticed on the roundel there as well, it says, "We are the brewery that makes your pleasant place." So yeah, maybe that's another translation of the kind of motto. But as I say, it's just the motto is basically just to, you know, create a community place and help you enjoy flavors and stuff. I think that's the kind of idea that they're going for. But yeah, it's one of the things, you know, with Japanese, with it being a very different language in terms of structure and things like that, some things will get slightly lost in translation, of course. But yeah, let's have a wee look at this beer then and see what it's all about. A 12% Belgian Imperial Stout from Ise in Mie Prefecture. This should be good. I think that head's going to disappear very, very quickly. So just before it does, you can see that the beer poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, medium tan head there. So you can see some of it is still there on this side. You can see medium-sized bubbles on the surface of it when it gets a little bit foamier the further up that you go. But all in all, it looks very nice, this one. That head has, of course, just faded away to leave a kind of thinner, foamy ring around the edge of the glass there. But 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. And you can actually see on the surface some of these bubbles just coming up there. And that's one of the things with Belgian beer, of course. A lot of the focus with Belgian style beers is on the yeast, but quite often they will use brewing sugar in the beer, and that gives you your secondary fermentation in the bottle, but it gives you a lighter mouthfeel and a higher alcohol content because of that. So yeah, that's one thing you have to be aware about Belgian style beers, is they can explode sometimes because of these things. But yeah, this one, as I say, it does look very nice, lovely sort of dark ebony rosewood colour. The beer, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. And when it comes to Imperial Stouts, you know, it's quite difficult to affect the colour of black beers with different adjuncts. I've only seen it done once, and that was with Beats, and that was a brewery in Estonia that did that, which was kind of crazy. But yeah, black beers, very difficult to affect the colour of them in that way. But you can see the head has just kind of completely disappeared in this one. 1 or 2 big bubbles stick in there, as I said. But all in all, it's a really nice looking beer, and pretty much what you would expect appearance-wise from any Imperial Stout. So let's take a little look at the nose of this one then and see how we go. But basically, when it comes to the Belgian Imperial Stout sub-style, what I expect from this is something that's got a little bit of that sort of phenolic-y medicinal fruit and a bit more yeasty character than your regular Imperial Stout. So let's have a wee look and see if that does prove to be the case in this one. Ooh, yeah, that does smell pretty damn good, actually. I think what I just said to you a minute ago is pretty much in line with that. This beer's almost got a little bit of a slightly smoky, rauchy type thing going on with it, but it is very, very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Even from the aroma, you can tell this beer is going to be pretty good. And like I said, a lot of people have been telling me, yeah, Himitsu is one of the breweries you need to review on the channel, and then yeah, it'd be cool. Obviously my friend Jordan lives very close to these guys, and we had planned to go and film something at Eclipse, so maybe we have to add this in, this brewery in, as another stop as well. But you know, this is a really interesting smelling beer, actually. It's got this lovely yeah, it really has this lovely big sort of silky, smooth kind of note to it, a little bit of smokiness in there, but you've got chocolate, brown sugar, a little bit of hoppy character, a little bit of fruit, kind of everything you would want from an Imperial Stout. And as I say, the Belgian Imperial Stouts lean a bit more toward that yeasty and kind of cakey side of things. So let's just take the aroma on this one and break it down and describe it for you that wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer, you can smell a little bit of that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crusty sort of thing. So yeah, that's definitely in there. But on top of that, you've got a little bit of, you know, you do get a little bit of woody character in there. There is a little touch of like nuttiness as well. But on top of the roast, and on top of the bread crusty character, Yeah, on top of the kind of bread crusty character, I want to say there's a little bit of a kind of sweet rye bready note to this one. Took me a little bit to figure out what that was, but there's a mix of kind of like sweet oily rye bread and then a sort of like chocolatey sponge. Yeah, sweet oily rye bread, chocolatey sponge, maybe a bit of chocolate brownie actually, that oily sticky chocolate, American style chocolate brownie is what's coming out of this one. So yeah, rye bread, chocolate brownie, a more chocolate spongy type character. And then above that, you do get a little bit more of a kind of wholemeal, brown bready character coming out of the beer too. So, yeah, in all honesty, the backbone, the malty backbone of this beer is lovely. I think this is going to be really rich and really thick, in all honesty. This is going to be a nice sipper over the next hour or two. It's a movie night tonight, so that's the main thing. Yeah, I wanted to get this review done and put the beer in the fridge and enjoy the movie. But yeah, the on top of the kind of cakey notes, as I say, you get a little bit more of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character, and there's a nice chocolatey note to this one as well. I would say maybe a 40 to 50% cocoa chocolate. You do get a little element of milky chocolate coming out of this beer as well, but yes, sort of 50% cocoa chocolate too. So yeah, the way that the chocolatey character in this one goes together is really, really nice. It's kind of silky in a sense too. As I say, I have had this beer, I think, for a little while, and I'm wondering if it was actually sat in the fridge for a wee while at Mother Tree as well before I bought it, because you know, these kind of silky smooth chocolatey notes that I'm getting out of this, usually they start to appear in the beer after a year or so when it's been sat there. And just looking at the kind of the little bit of wear on the can there, maybe this is one of their very, very early beers, which is quite cool actually. And it says on here I think it's best before March 2027, and normally a beer like this, I don't see them putting 4 years on it. You know, 5 years makes a bit more sense. So yeah, that's the interesting thing. But yeah, maybe this beer was released in 2022. I could be drinking this one at 2 years old, something like that. Not sure. But yeah, all in all, the aroma smells great on this. I will say that straight away. But yeah, the chocolatey character in this one's nice. Above that, you get some of these lovely leathery brown sugars in there. There's a bit of treacle and molasses. There's a little bit of straight up sweet caramel in there. Some nuttiness comes out of the beer into the aftertaste as well, or into the nose as well. We're not on the flavour yet. But yeah, the malty backbone of this beer is absolutely lovely. So yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the malty side of the beer. The only other thing I would add is that the yeasty character gives you this sort of sweet, cakey type note to it, which is interesting. And I'm sure we'll get more out of that in the actual flavour. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, one of the things you have to remember about Imperial Stouts is that they are not the most hop forward style of beer. And you know, especially if you age these as many people do, the hoppy character is going to drop out progressively or gradually as you go on. But yeah, with this one, you do still get a little touch of earthiness out of it. There's a little bit of herbal character in there. And there's some nice kind of floral and grassy notes at the front of the nose too. But the fruity side of this beer, I think, is really very, very nice. You've got a lovely oily plummy character coming out of this one. Yeah, nice big sharp juicy raisin in there, big oily plum. Yeah, lovely big oily plums in there, bit of like date and prune underneath, but I've got big juicy figgy notes, black currant and sort of black berries coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really, really nice. You can just smell it. You can, you know, with some of these beers, you can just tell they are really, really good quality when you smell them, and I think this beer is going to be one of those. So yeah, I think I made a very good choice with this one. As I say, picked it because I didn't know, I looked at this brewery because I didn't know them, and I picked this beer just because you don't see Belgian Imperial Stouts all that often. But you can just tell this is going to be good. As I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is time to try this one. So yeah, this is the Eclipse, a 12% Belgian style Imperial Stout from Himitsu Beer in Ise Prefecture here in Japan. Really looking forward to this. Slange, skål, cheers, kanpai. Yeah, that's really damn good. You know, Jordan, who I mentioned earlier, that lives locally to these guys, he told me that one of the funny things about this brewery is that they are really very modest, and you know that is a Japanese thing. You know, Japanese people want, it's part of their character, part of their national character, I guess you could say, to be very humble in a lot of ways. But yeah, the quality of this beer really is very, very good. These guys obviously are very, very new, and they will take some time to kind of scale up and get their beer out there and things. But yeah, if their other beers are the same quality as this, which I've heard they are, then these guys do have a very bright future ahead of them, we can say that. And I have noticed in recent times actually the quality of Japanese beer has gone up quite significantly, I would say that. So yeah, like the new breweries that are starting out, the quality of their beer is on a different level to what it was, you know, sort of 10 years ago when I first started trying Japanese beer. So yeah, exciting times ahead for the Japanese beer scene, let's just say that. But this is a lovely, lovely Imperial Stout. It gives you everything you want. You've got that slightly more yeasty character coming out of it, which you want with it being a Belgian beer, or Belgian style beer, I should say. You've got the big sort of toastiness in there, the bready notes, the sweet, the drier sweetness, the fruitiness, and that little bit of hoppy character. This beer does deliver, and it delivers very, very well. So yeah, one of the things I should say about Imperial Stouts is that there's a few ways you can play with these. Obviously you can barrel age them, and that sacrifices a bit of your mouthfeel, but you get all these infused flavours. You can do double mashes and things like that as well, and that gives you a thicker mouthfeel and a more sticky kind of character to it. You can do longer wort balls, which is going to give you a more kind of dry, leathery, brown, sugary character, gives you more complexity, and you can play with adjuncts and things like that in these beers too. So those are the main ways that you can play with this style. This beer feels as if it's, I'm not sure if it's double mash. It could potentially be just from the thickness of the mouthfeel. And especially with it being 12%, it covers its alcohol very well, incidentally, but especially with it being 12%, I'm not sure, but the thing with Japanese beer is that contradicts that. The view in Japan of beer is that it has to be quite light and quite drinkable. So very often with Japanese beer, you'll find they're packed full of flavour, but they just feel very quick, clean, and that's because of that mentality I just mentioned, and it's also because Japan is a volcanic island, so the water quality here is, you know, very, very good. So yeah, this beer for 12%, it's remarkably light and drinkable, but as I say, packed full of flavour. You're getting a lot of the flavours coming out of this beer into the aftertaste. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to pinpoint exactly how they've designed this beer in a sense, because it does feel like it might have a slightly longer wort ball and potentially be double mash, but the cleanliness of the Japanese water kind of makes it feel that little bit lighter. But still, for me, that's just interesting to figure out what's going on here. But the main thing is, this is a great quality beer. So let's just break the flavour down then and describe it for you that little bit more in depth. So middle third of your palate then, the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of rye bready bread crust form in the backbone of this one. It's not really that toasted or, you know, well fired or anything like that, but further forward on that middle third of the palate, you do get a little bit of a kind of woody character coming out of it, which I think is very, very nice. On top of that, there's a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of note. So just a little touch of cracker, but mainly a rye bready bread crust. Then on top of that, you've got that more oily German style rye bread coming out of this one, and that's great. But then above that, pardon me, you start to get this kind of chocolate brownie type note coming out of the beer, so that oily, sticky chocolate brownie in there. Within that chocolate brownie, you have a little touch of nutty character, which I think is really interesting as well. So yeah, you've got that lovely kind of oily, nutty character. You've got that lovely nutty character coming out within that oily chocolate brownie there. But then above that, you get like a sort of chocolate sponge, or a lighter, kind of more airy chocolate sponge layer. There's still a bit of nuttiness in there as well. And then above that, you get a more wholemeal, brown bready type character coming out of this one. But yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. But the base of the on top of the kind of wholemeal brown bready character, you start to get the chocolate out of this one. And as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But the more charred, you get a more charred kind of chocolatey flavour at the back of that middle third of your palate. Then as you come further forward, it sort of mellows out. I think we're talking, 60% cocoa chocolate in the middle of your palate, then it mellows out to be a more sort of maybe like 50% cocoa chocolate. It doesn't quite feel like milk chocolate, in all honesty. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think is very, very nice in this one. The chocolatey character's very, very smooth and very, very silky. As I say, when you age Imperial Stouts, you get that more kind of silky character out of them. But above the chocolatey layer, you start to get that kind of, above the chocolatey character, you start to get the more silky kind of brown sugary notes in there. So you can feel there's this slightly leathery brown sugary character, and then above that, you get this little circle where you get there's a little bit like Werther's original butter candy butterscotch to it, but mainly it's a kind of treacle molasses sort of thing. And the brown sugary character almost has this bit of like phenolic, medicinal type quality to it as well. So yeah, the way that all of that just pieces together, I think, is really quite interesting. So that gets a thumbs up from me. The malty side of this beer is really, really nice and well done. And you have, to have a good Imperial Stout, you have to have that good malty side of the beer. But yeah, let's go to the back third of your palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you've got the kind of rye bread in the base, and more of the chocolate sponge above that, then a wee bit of the more like charred chocolatey character there. But the base of the back third of your palate, yeah, you've got the bread crust, which is a little bit more toasty and well fired. You've got a wee bit of cracker there. You can feel the rye bready layer, which is a little bit lighter and more airy. Then above that, you have the kind of more brownie character there, which is still quite oily and sticky. The chocolate sponge, and then the wholemeal brown bread. And then creeping over the top of that, you have the kind of toastier. You've got a little bit of a more kind of, you can feel the more charred aspects of the chocolate than the toasty brown sugars. And then above all of that, you have the kind of yeasty side of the beer. So the yeasty side of this beer is quite interesting. The yeasty side of this beer for me is it's quite like I think the yeasty side of this beer is giving the beer some of that kind of medicinal phenolic type quality as well, but you can feel core of that yeasty character is a little bit more rye bready, and then as you move further out from that, it's like an oily sweet rye bread in the middle, then it's a more grainy rye bread around the edge, and then the very, very extremity of it is like a toasty, slightly well-fired bread crust. So you can feel, yeah, the back third of your palate with this beer is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, the yeasty and malty side of this beer is quite interesting. I think it gets darker and more toasty the further into the aftertaste you go as well. But let's have a little look at the hoppy side of things with this beer then. The back corners of the palate, you've got a good little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, but then yeah, you get nice little bits of floral aromaticity in there. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, as I said. So yeah, nice little bit of grassy note in there, a little bit more oily. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together is quite nice as well. But yeah, not too much hoppy character in this one, and you wouldn't expect that from an Imperial Stout, especially a Belgian Imperial Stout at that. But let's have a little look at the fruity side of things in that front third of your palate. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of kind of rye bread in the base, and then the wholemeal brown bread on top of that, then a bit of the more kind of charred chocolatey notes on top. The base of that front third of your palate, yeah, well-fired bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, the some more rye bready character in the wholemeal brown bread. I don't get so much of the cakey note in there, but then yeah, above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together is quite nice as well. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer then, as I say, potentially within that border region, you get a bit of the kind of phenolic, medicinal, cough syrupy type thing in there. But let's look at the actual fruity side of the beer. So for me, the fruity side of the beer is kind of what you expect when you take it in. There's a little bit of that raisiny sharpness in there. Then you start to get the more juicy, plummy character at the back of that front third of your palate. So yeah, raisins, plums. Then you start to get a little bit of then you start to get a wee bit of I would say there's like a prune and a kind of datey character in there in the base, and as you move further forward toward the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit more of like a kind of figgy type note, and then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of a more black curranty note, and then maybe some juicy blackberry on top of it. But yeah, the fruity character in this beer, the further you go into the aftertaste, becomes a little bit more kind of juicy and soft, if you like. But yeah, I think at that we've covered everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer. It's got quite a complex flavour to it. As I say, I got quite excited that it's a Belgian Imperial Stout, because you don't come across these all that often. But yeah, this is a lovely, lovely beer, and it's a very good, if they can brew something like this and do it well, it gives you a very good first impression of Himitsu Beer. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour profile of this one. Let's round off the review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, the mouthfeel of this beer, it feels very clean because of the water quality, but I would say, yeah, top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied, certainly not lacking in flavour. Carbonation does have a slight degree of crispness to it. Carbonation does have a slight degree of crispness to it. I would say the IBU in this beer is probably going to be 70-ish, 70, 80 IBU, something like that. You're getting a good little bit of bitterness and toastiness from the malt. You're also getting a little bit of bitterness from the hops. The malt base underneath, as I say, it has a little bit of toastiness. It's not too charred and well fired. You've got the smoothness in the middle and the kind of drier sweetness on top of that, which I think is really nice. The fruity side of the beer is a little bit more oily. It doesn't have so much in the way of dried fruits until you get into the aftertaste. And yeah, I think this is it's really nicely done. As I say, you've got that yeasty dryness into the aftertaste which you expect of a Belgian style beer, and you get that sort of medicinally type flavour that you expect from the kind of Belgian brew sugars that they often use. But yeah, all in all, very, very interesting beer, this one, and a very positive first experience of Himitsu Beer. So I'll need to try some of their more conventional beers, I think, and see how they do those. But I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been a really interesting beer to try. So yeah, this is the Eclipse, a 12% Belgian style Imperial Stout from Himitsu Beer in Ise, Mie Prefecture here in Japan. I can feel the booze going to my head on this one a little bit because it covers its alcohol very well. But yeah, I think that's all we need to say about this one. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Himitsu as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now.